Welcome to my home. I'm back in Colorado Springs, Colorado, USA, and I have a story that covers 4 decades that I want to tell you. I was a student at Moody Bible Institute and studying missions. I'm also an MK. I grew up in Taiwan as a missionary kid, which is what MK stands for. While I'm at Moody, I studied a lot about world missions and what was going on. My main love was history. And so the history of missions was an important part of my life. And I realized very little had been successful in reaching the Muslim world for Christ. And so as I was finishing at Moody, 2 big things happened. One is I found my wife, Sandy, and we got engaged after I finished at Moody. But also I started having a heart for the Muslim world and thinking about what I wanted to do in ministry. I felt God called us into missions, into overseas mission, and Sandy felt the same. And so we were planning where we would go. Well, Tehran turned out to be the place that we felt we were supposed to go to. So in 1979, Sandy and I started a trip where we were trying to raise funds for our dream of going to Tehran, Iran. And we started the trip. Well, 2 things happened on that trip. In January, Sandy had her first ectopic pregnancy and had to be in surgery. And we were a month at a friend's house trying to go through recovery. While we're at this friend's house, we're watching the news every day. And Khomeini came into Tehran and took over. And there was no way an American was going to go, American family couple were going to go to Tehran and be missionaries. Because under the new Khomeini, the Muslims were taking over and no Christian missionary was allowed in. We're thinking, Lord, what have you done? We were supposed to be missionaries to Iran. It was such a clear message while I was at Moody Bible Institute to be a missionary to the Muslims. Well, there was a long process. And through that process, God led us to Indonesia, where we spent 9 years working in the largest Muslim country in the world. I hadn't even realized that before. But we worked with the Muslims of Indonesia and had a wonderful ministry there. Then after 9 years there, God called us to China. How did he call us to China? It was a visit in 1990. We were in China. My grandfather had died as a missionary in China, and he'd been killed as a martyr for the Chinese people. The vice governor of our province, Guoyu Huai, Shanxi province, met us and said, I know your grandfather's history. And he pointed at Sandy and me and said, you too need to represent your family, come back to Shanxi and continue the spirit of your grandfather, Peter Torrielson, and call your organization Evergreen Family Friendship Service. We're looking at each other and we're going, whoa, how do we do that? This is a communist country. What do we do? Well, God worked it out. We made an agreement that we would try in 3 years to get to China and start an organization that would serve in China. We did that. From 93 to 2006, 13 years, we're in China, just serving the Chinese people, being a part of the government, of the local church, of the ministries that were possible there, serving the community. In 2006, I got a chance to go to Urbana in St. Louis, Missouri. And Urbana is a conference of 22,000 university students who want to know what would God have them do in their life to serve him, in their profession and missions and pastoring and whatever. So I'll tell you what, 22,000 university students was a little bit much for me. But I had one seminar I did, and during that seminar, there were only about 30 people that came to it. At the end, there were a number of people that wanted to ask me questions. I did a seminar on working with the house church related to the registered church and all the political and controversial issues related to that. At the very end, there was a Chinese man standing in the back. He waited for everybody else to finish asking me questions. And then he said, can I just walk with you back to the main auditorium? It was a 3-mile walk, so we're not talking a short time, an hour-long walk. I said, fine, let's go together. So we talked on the way back to the auditorium. During that walk, I heard his story. He had been a businessman that was a consultant for Motorola, actually helped Motorola become one of the top companies in the 80s in China, got 80% of the hand phone, cell phone. Remember when they were almost the size of car batteries? Those were the cell phones that he helped Motorola bring into China and then move it on to the modern today's phones that, the flip phones and on from there in the 90s. So a very brilliant businessman. God had found him in the mid-90s. He came to know the Lord. He started loving the study of God's word, began preparing himself for possible ministry. He and his wife actually went to one of the countries in Central Asia as a missionary for 6 months. So this is now early 2000s. He comes back to Beijing and he meets with his pastor and he says, we've been 6 months in this country in Central Asia and we are absolute failures. We have no idea what we're supposed to do. And his pastor goes, I don't know about missionaries. I know about running a church, but I don't know about missionary life. How do you work cross-culturally? All I know about is this Urbana conference for potential missionaries in St. Louis. Go to Urbana, find a missionary, and tell him to teach you how to be a missionary. Sonny looked at me. This is his Chinese name isn't Sonny, but his English name, he uses the name Sonny. He looked at me and he said, you're my missionary. You teach me what to do. I go, what? Well, we spent the next 4 or 5 days, every hour that was free just talk. I'm trying to teach him everything I've learned in the 20 years I've been a missionary and my 20 years as an MK, missionary kid. And we had a good time, but I was exhausted. We get back to China, and for the next 2 years, from 2006 to 2008, every month I'm going to Beijing and teaching him and his colleagues as much as I can. I'm bringing in other experts that can help him learn more about the essence of what cross-cultural missions evangelism looks like. So 2008 happens, and that is the beginning of the Olympic year for China. And with the Olympic year, China had a lot of tragedies that year. They had the Sichuan earthquake. They had a snowstorm that closed down the southern part of China during their main holiday festival. Really was devastating. They had Tibetan riots where lots of people were killed. There was just a lot. So China clamped down. Rather than face another calamity with maybe the Olympics going off the rails, they rather resisted letting too many people come into the country. And it was too bad because they had done a great job in preparing for the Olympics. But the churches also had to stay very low. So I did not see Sonny for a long time, starting in the spring of 2008. 2009, I'm in Beijing. I go, where is Sonny? I called his own cell phone number, and he answered. He says, Sonny, is that you? And I go, this is Finn. Yeah, it's me. Hey, can we get together? I'm in Beijing. Yeah, I'll meet you in such and such a place. So we met at this hotel. I go, Sonny, what have you been doing? I haven't seen you for over a year. He goes, I've been in Tehran. I go, Tehran? What have you been doing in Tehran? He goes, what you've been teaching me, missionary work. Well, tell me about it. Why did you choose Tehran? He goes, God led me to Tehran. So what are you doing there? He said, well, one of the things you taught me was learn the culture, learn what's going on there, and stick with what you're good at. If God doesn't tell you exactly what to do what you're good at, what he's already given you gifting at. So I said, what did you do? He said, I started a consulting house. So I'm a consultant, a Chinese business consultant in Tehran. Okay, so good, awesome. What did you do? He said, well, then I found the Christians, because the second thing you said is, don't try and start something new until you find out what God's already doing in a place. So he said, I found all the Chinese Christians that were there in Tehran, and they introduced me to the Iranian Christians, and I found out what's going on in Tehran among the Christians. And I just joined them and started working. I go, Sonny, did you know that's where I thought God was calling me? And now he sent you. So another one of God's crazy stories. Sonny has moved on from Tehran to Cairo. He's looking at Tel Aviv or Israel or Jerusalem as another place he might go. He is becoming a senior veteran missionary, training other missionaries from China. He's learning what it takes to be a missionary in some of the hardest places in the world. and he's blessing others that want to serve. God's path is not straight. It winds all over. It is a narrow and straight path to heaven, to following him. But the route he takes us in our life goes all over the place. I got blessed by seeing the path I thought God was calling me fulfilled by Sonny. We don't always get to see, but he's working. Is he calling you? What do you think he might have you do? Have fun. Have fun figuring out what you and God are going to do together. Thank you for listening.